Hi, I'm Jean Wells, and I want to introduce you to some techniques in my second edition of Intuitive Color and Design. We're going to begin with rulerless cutting. I find that this technique has opened up so many doors for me because I can create lines that are my own. It's like your own handwriting. What I do is begin with strips of fabric, and I've cut mine about 9 inches. And the quilt that you can see behind me, you'll see this technique used in all of that vertical panel that has the horizontal strip piecing. And you begin with your rotary cutter and gently curve, and I think of these as gentle curving lines, and obviously you can do what you want with them. I need to catch that one a little bit. So you can see how this is kind of a gentle sort of curve. To cut my next strip, I'm going to put it underneath the first one and just barely overlap the fabric, and then I'll use the design line on the first one to cut the second one. Now that slipped a little bit, but that's not the end of the world. So there we go. Now I have my 2 fabrics, and one of the things you want to always think about when you're doing this technique is that your fabrics need to be facing you. Now when you're using solids that wouldn't matter, but if you were using a print it would make a big difference. So both fabrics are facing me right side up, and I'm going to take the one on the right and put it on top of the left one, right sides together. And you can see how the lines aren't matching up, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So now we're going to get ready to sew that seam. I'm going to begin with what I call a bunny tail. It's a little scrap of fabric about maybe 1.5 inches by 2 or 3 inches. I fold it in half, and I'm going to stitch through that until I come almost to the end. And the reason I'm doing this is that I will then feed these 2 strips in, and I'm not dealing with ending this and having the threads back here. I find when you're doing 1/4 inch seams and you're doing more intricate work, there's that chance that you can jam the thread and the fabric in the throat plate. So the bunny tails work great. So I'm making sure that my fabrics are right sides together for 1 inch. I am not worrying about the rest of it yet, and you'll see why here in a minute. So I'm going to feed it in, and I'm doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to want to hold the top fabric in your left hand, and your right hand is going to maneuver the fabric on the bottom until you can match up the raw edges. So I'm going to sew for a little while, stop, and I'm going to line it up a little further. And you can see I can move the bottom fabric or the top fabric, but I get them right on top of each other. I make sure that I'm not pulling that top fabric. Then I'm going to slide a second bunny tail in right after that seam and clip. You can now see this nice gentle sort of curved seam that we just created. In terms of how to press the seam, you can press it in either direction. It doesn't really make any difference which direction you press it in. So you would want to go press that seam at this point, and then you would continue on. And one of the things that I like to do is to stage my fabrics ahead of time. I've cut strips of fabric that are all 1.5 to 2 inches in width and about 9 inches long, and I start playing with a combination of colors that I think might work. Now, if I showed all the colors in the same width strip like I have here, it wouldn't be very interesting. But you can see here where I have left like a narrow amount of this deeper purple and a little bit less of the gray, and so on. And that will make for an interesting composition that I will share with you later. I wanted to share with you another quilt that I made using this technique, and there's a lot of gentle curves in this. I'm going to turn it this way and you can see them in a horizontal fashion, but none of them are any curvier than what I showed you today. So there's so many possibilities for this technique. I'm very fond of landforms and things that I see in nature, so that this was inspired by colors from nature and some stones that I saw along the Crooked River in Oregon. Thank you for watching, and this is the first in a series of 3 videos that we're putting together to show you more techniques.